Hello, everybody. My name is Julia, and welcome to my digital classroom. Today is lesson 5 out of 10 in our unit on the executive branch of the American government. Today's topic is pardon power. As always, my source is from iCivics. You can find all the lesson materials using the QR code in the top right. And I'm still committed to giving you lessons in 10 minutes or less, so let's jump in. First of all, our objectives for today's lesson are that we are going to identify the source of the president's pardoning power and any of its limitations. We're going to talk about why the president might grant a pardon. We're going to define a term called commutation. We're going to analyze some false claims, and we're going to use a variety of strategies to verify the information. So let's jump in. First, let's warm up. You don't need to go to any website. You don't even need to write it down if you don't want to. Just think about under what circumstances should a person be forgiven for a crime? Go ahead and think about that. Pause the video. Think about that for like 30 seconds. Pause, and then we'll continue. Okay, so let's go to the Constitution because you're going to need to be thinking about that answer, why you might need to pardon somebody, because the president has the power to pardon somebody for a crime. What exactly does that mean? It means that the president can forgive anyone who has been accused or found guilty of committing a federal crime by restoring any civil rights. Now, this power is limited to the president only. The legislature and the judicial branch do not have this power whatsoever. So, what exactly is a federal crime? Well, I was going to provide a list for you, but it is very extensive and very long. Think of any crime that you can really get arrested for. But if you want to look it up, just go ahead and do a quick Google search, find a reliable source, and you can look up exactly what that means. Now, there are some limitations to this. The president can only forgive federal crimes. So, again, finding that list of crimes will be helpful in this. But either way, they can only forgive federal crimes, and the president cannot pardon someone out of impeachment. So, if someone has been impeached, which we'll talk about in a later lesson, they cannot pardon someone who has been impeached. Interesting. So here's an example of a president using a presidential pardon. I'm going to move this so you can see him. This is President Jimmy Carter. After the Vietnam War, which was a very controversial war if you have not learned about it, many people were not in support of it. It's still looked down on even today. The veterans from that war are still being very much mistreated in many ways because of just the controversial nature of this war. But to try and bring back some morale, President Jimmy Carter pardoned any men who were arrested because they refused to register for the military service during that war. So basically, he was just trying to do that as a symbol of healing and of peace to move on from such a devastating time in our history. So, that's an example of when a president has used a pardon. Pardons are pretty common. It wasn't revolutionary for Jimmy Carter to use a pardon. However, it was a very big symbol and because of the manner in which he used it. So, let's talk about some gray area here. Can the president pardon his or herself? The answer is that no one has ever tried it before, and the Constitution doesn't explicitly say that the president cannot pardon his or herself. That is up to the courts. Now remember, the judicial branch, whenever the Supreme Court interprets the Constitution, they interpret it in real time. Because remember, the Constitution is merely a guide for laws to be written based on that overarching umbrella of the Constitution. It is not all knowing, and it definitely does not articulate every law ever known to man. In fact, I think I've said this before, if you were to type up the Constitution in a Word document, it would only take 3 pages. Yeah, like 3 pages, that's it. So, that means that there's a lot of gray area where the Supreme Court gets to decide the constitutionality of some things based on the context of the Constitution. If I had to guess, the Supreme Court would probably not be super cool with a president trying to pardon his or herself from a crime, because that would be a federal crime. So, I would say no, but also I don't know. It's up to the Supreme Court. It's never been done before. So let's look at some unverified information. This is a little bit separate from the idea of a pardon power, but this is a good tip or a good skill for you to be aware of, just because there is a lot of it out there, especially as you are just heading into the real world and just ingesting resources from the media. So let's look at some unverified information. To be unverified, it just means that no one has checked to see how true it is. Always, always, always check your facts. I talked in our last lesson. Snopes.com is a fantastic resource. They take lots of controversial things or things you might find in the news, and they basically just do all that fact checking work for you to tell you if something is factual or just straight up unverified, not even true. So, here is Well, iCivics called this a meme. I use that term very loosely, I suppose, then. But this was a meme that was being spread around on Facebook about Obama and his presidential pardons. So it says that Obama pardoned Chelsea Manning's 35-year prison sentence for leaking classified information. He pardoned more than 330 federal criminals in his last week of office. And Obama pardoned more than 1,700 criminals as president. That sounds pretty bad, right? I would be pretty scared to hear if my president did that, so I would very quickly share that and say that he is a bad president. You'd probably see that a lot on Facebook. So, here's why I say to check your facts. The real information about this says that he did not pardon any of those people. He used a commutation. A commutation is a different form of a pardon. All it does is reduce a prisoner's sentence. So here's the key part of a pardon. The pardon actually gives those criminals back their civil liberties. They're able to re enlist, they are able to serve public office, they are able to vote, so on and so forth. A commutation does not. It's basically just a get out of jail free card, but they are not given those rights and responsibilities of voting, enlisting, serving in public office, so on and so forth. So, think about a commutation this way: they've served enough time. The punishment just doesn't fit the crime anymore. End quote. So, you can think about it that way. It is not the same as a pardon, which is why a pardon seems so much more flabbergasting in this scenario, because it says that he freed and gave civil liberties to all of these people who did apparently really bad things. Not true at all. So, watch your memes and watch the information that you're seeing online. Always double check. Snopes.com, again, is a very great resource. So, that is all I have for you today. We're keeping it short and sweet today. You can follow me on Twitter at Giulia Pucci EDU. You can also scan the QR code or type in the URL to my website on the left there if you have any questions. You can find all my contact information